Welcome for this afternoon session of the Luxembourg Horizon Europe Day. This is the first time that we have a dedicated track on defense, dual use, and synergies. And as you will find out throughout the session, the reasons are manifold for this, but all in all, it can be said that many initiatives have been launched in recent years in order to support the civilian industry to get access to the EU defense market while promoting both the national and the European innovation capacity. Before starting with the session for the next 45 minutes, I would like to point out that you can ask questions in the Q&A tab on the right side of your screen. Some of them might be answered during the sessions, and others will be taken at the end at the Q&A slot after the panel round discussion. Moreover, if you want to read about the background of each of the panelists, you can click on the profile image under the streaming window. And then also on the right side, there's a poll that you can fill in. And eventually, I also would like to point out that you will be asked at the end of this session to provide a short feedback on the rating of the session. So let me now quickly introduce our very distinguished panelists. Sylvia Kainz-Huber, Head of Unit at the European Commission's Directorate General for Defense and Space, DG Defis, will provide us some information on the European Defence Fund, as well as the European Commission's action plan on synergies between civil, space, and defence industry. Welcome, Sylvia. Colonel Guy Hoffmann, National Armament Director at the Luxembourg Directorate of Defence, will explain how Luxembourg has increased its efforts in EU defence and NATO-related initiatives, and how this can benefit to the Luxembourg industry. Welcome, Guy. Benjamin Castier, Director for R&D and Innovation Support at Lux Innovation, will speak about Lux Innovation's mission in defense activities, notably in the frame of its collaboration with the Directorate of Defense. And eventually, Christine Leorquin, Director of Strategy for European Institutions at REA Luxembourg, will tell us about REA's experience in national and European defense initiatives, including challenges and how to tackle them, which SMEs and civil industry might face when trying to get into the defense market. So welcome, Benjamin, welcome, Christine. Let's now get started with the session. Just a few introductory words from my side. At the annual conference of the European Defence Agency in December last year, Charles Michel, the EU Council President, announced that 2022 will be the year of defense. So I therefore would like to quickly highlight all the EU defense-related initiatives that will actually take place in 2022. First, under the French EU presidency, the EU member states shall endorse in March 2022 the so-called Strategic Compass, a vision document for a first common security and defense policy that shall, among others, result in the elaboration of a EU space strategy for defense and security until 2023. Second, the EU Ministers of Defense are discussing the setup of a European Defense Innovation Network. And thirdly, NATO has announced the creation of a civil military accelerator, as well as a NATO Innovation Fund that shall support dual-use technology developments. All these initiatives are connected in the sense that in the past, innovation used to come mainly from the military domain. Nowadays, the eruption of emerging technologies comes increasingly from the civil world, thereby creating also new threats and challenges for defense. Creating more synergies between civil and defense, therefore, is key. And I hereby would then like to start with the panel discussion. So, first question will go to the European Commission. Dear Sylvie, besides the European Defense Agency and NATO, the European Commission and DG Defis have in recent years also taken important steps for streamlining the EU member states' efforts in defense R&D and capability development, as well as enabling a simplified access into the defense market for the civil industry. This is notably the case of the European Defence Fund and the Synergies action plan between civil space and defense industries. So could you please explain us what these two initiatives are about, and what has the European Commission's experience been so far with the European defense ecosystem? The floor is yours.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Alexander. Good morning also to my partners here in this panel discussion, and also, well, I should probably more say good afternoon and not good morning, also to all those who listen to us today. Um, I will try to do my best to give you a quick ride into what are these two instruments which you mentioned. What's the European Defence Fund? What's the action plan for synergies, civil defence space? What's it about? In a relatively short time. Let me start with the EDF. What is it? It's an industrial cooperation program launched as one of the 8 or 10 or so MFF programs that were launched last year at the beginning of last year, or rather in spring last year. The overarching objectives of the EDF is, of course, first of all, fostering the competitiveness, but particularly also the innovation capacity of the EU industry, where we do think there is also need to bring in more innovation into the sector. Why we started it, we saw that there is, in our analysis also by the time we developed the proposal for the program, that there is a large degree of fragmentation across Europe, the technological as well as in the industrial landscape in Europe, that led to the fact that we have, I don't know how many X times more weapon systems currently available and used across Europe compared to our, if you so wish, main neighbors, competitors. If you look at the USA, for example. We also, and one key objective, what we wanted to achieve with the EDF is to help also then maximize the outcome of our defense spending in Europe. We know we need to spend more. This has been in the political discussions for a while. We also know that we definitely need to spend more in Europe on defense R&D, which with reduced investments in the defense sector in general was always the first victim in many member states. And what we want to achieve is definitely not only to spend more and with the fund contribute to this increase of investments in the sector, but also aim and push at spending it together with the member states or the member states amongst each other, spending it better together. And finally, an underlying other objective of the fund is to strengthen the Europeans' resilience and its strategic autonomy, notably by reducing certain technological dependencies which we see from third countries in critical areas. And while we were discussing the EDF, this was always still a bit of a theoretical discussion. I think now many of the industrial impacts and economic impacts which we see, which also concern the defense industry or defense sector as any other sector, you could clearly see that this is no longer just a theoretical discussion and can lead really very quickly, these dependencies can really very quickly lead to very difficult situations. So how do we achieve these objectives? The EDF provides, and that many of you will know also, of course, from Horizon Europe, funding contributions in form of grants to collaborative R&D projects. So far, so good. Same scheme, same way to go about things. These collaborative defense R&D projects are selected through calls for proposals on topics that are agreed with member states through annual work programs. For this MFF, the EDF, meaning for this time frame or budget framework of the EU from 21 to 27, the EDF has a budget of overall roughly 8 billion. And the specificity is that we have make a distinction in the EDF between what is real research actions and what is development actions, then going further into prototyping. And 1/3 of the 8 billion are dedicated to research actions. 2/3 of the 8 billion budget of the EDF are allocated to development actions. The difference and the key difference between is not only the activity covered, But it is that for research, we pay 100% of the eligible costs to the consortia, while then when we go up more to the final product, if you so wish, meaning prototyping, certification, testing, and whatever comes to really bring it to pre-production stage, here we do ask for co-financing to come from either industry itself, which rarely happens. So in many cases, or in almost all the cases, it's then member states that co-finance and cover the rest of the costs. Another specificity, 4 to 8%, and here we come also to this innovation objective which we have of the fund, is to be allocated to R&D in disruptive technologies. And now comes the difference with regard to Horizon Europe. EDF really, and whatever we do under the EDF starts and needs to be based on clearly defined or agreed military or needs based on military capability needs from member states. So while then these results, and we come to that a bit later on, can of course be interesting for the civil actors as well, the starting point for what we do, the topics we define, the actions or the projects we then select needs to be a clear military need. And the EDF regulation even goes that far, that it clearly says that whatever we do under the EDF needs to be consistent with the capability development plan. But we also, of course, need to take into account, for example, other priority setting instruments, such as, I would say, CARD, and then hopefully also we'll see how the future strategic compacts can inform whatever we do under the fund. Another important objective is also for us in the fund to foster SME participation. We know that if we don't manage to also get the buy-in of member states whose, I would say, industrial landscape is characterized by notably smaller enterprises, SMEs mainly, we need to ensure that all member states and their industries, or the industries from all member states across the EU, have a fair chance to participate and benefit from the EDF. And insofar was SME participation is a real issue which we're taking very serious in the EDF, and through dedicated SME calls, through specific award criteria which we use for evaluation, but also to a series of support actions which accompany what we do in the fund. And for example, just to name one example, what we do in support actions, we're providing coaching services also for SMEs that participate in the fund. So where are we today? We have now, through the EDF precursor programs, so the Preparatory Action for Defense Research and the EDIDP, launched in 2017 and 2019. We're already funding collaborative defense R&D projects, more than 60 actually, and some of which will soon now come to an end and deliver first results. I already mentioned it in the first concrete step of the rollout of the EDF last year was the adoption of its first annual work program in June, and then literally on the same day we launched also the first 23 calls for proposals for R&D projects in the defense domain funded under the EDF for a total budget of 1.2 billion euro. So those 23 calls that have been closed in the meantime in December, and the evaluation of the proposals we received is ongoing. So there isn't too much information I can give you on that, but a few key data which are very interesting and also very encouraging for us so far. We received more than 140 proposals covering all these 23 call topics which have been published. The open calls, notably dedicated to SMEs, which I mentioned earlier, and also the calls which focused entirely on research in disruptive technologies, received the highest response rates. So more than 40% of the proposals which we received focus on those three calls. And then a last interesting figure, which I would like to mention, is that SMEs, amongst the entities that participated in the consortia that put forward proposals, represent about 50% of all the entities involved in the submitted proposals. So that's a very good, encouraging result now for this first round of calls, of EDF calls. Now, let me quickly also come to a link between EDF and the action plan on synergies between civil space and defense industry, which the Commission put forward last year. Again, here I cannot go too much into detail. We're sure we have more questions about this later on. This Synergies action plan is about complementarity between relevant EU programs and instruments. It's about how we can promote the exploitation of results, notably from defense and space R&D, which can also be of relevance to the civil sector. So if I may call that spin-off, if you so wish. And it's also about what's becoming, in my view, for the defense sector, increasingly relevant in the future, is how we can facilitate the use of civil-driven innovation and technologies in the defense domain, and also reach out better to actors that have so far not been active in the defense domain, where in many technology areas which become increasingly relevant for defense, developments in a very fast pace are driven by the civil service and not really by the defense sector. Here I'm talking about whatever it is, the whole cyber domain, cloud technologies, quantum, artificial intelligence. So two actions are particularly relevant for us now in terms of the EDF. There is an action amongst these 18 actions which the action plan contains or includes. One action refers to targeted measures for SME support startups and RTOs. So what I just mentioned, reaching out to actors that have so far not put their foot also in the defense domain for various reasons. So this is something which we are also trying to support, and to with our support actions around the EDF to see how we can do that, how we can encourage or help notably smaller companies outside and from the civil sector to get how do you say find their position or find links also in the defense domain. And a second action concerns enhancing cross-border innovation networks and establish an innovation incubator. And here we are, as DEFIS, DG DEFIS, in discussion, of course, to explore with the relevant actors here also at EU level, notably the ESC, how we can explore to which extent we can, for example, make use of their services and instrument. And here I'm thinking, for example, about the business acceleration service, where now we're really also trying to see how can that instrument be used also in the defense domain and in the context of the EDF. So by way of introduction, let me stop here. I hope that has at least given a good heads up and first introduction into the two instruments. There's of course a lot more to say, but happy to answer any further questions on this then. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Sylvie. Indeed, I think we could probably talk about this hours, but thank you a lot already for this explanation. And I think the link to the EU's capability development here is really key. Therefore, it's clear also that the European Commission has taken a central role in for supporting the development of defense capabilities. And I surely hope also that we will soon have some more information on the second call of the EDF. So with this, I would like to go to the second question for the Directorate of Defense. So Guy, Luxembourg is increasingly active in EU defense-related initiatives and has also its own national defense strategy for 2025 and beyond. So green defense, cyber, space are all priority areas for the Director of Defense. So could you please explain us what Luxembourg's activities are related to EU defense initiatives such as the EDA and the EDF, and then also maybe explain in a more general way how the national ecosystem has evolved and which is the Directive of Defense general intention for supporting alloy industry interested in getting access to the defense market. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I thank you for inviting us to join the panel and to give some explanation on the Luxembourg ambitions and the Luxembourg views on EDA, PESCO, EDF, and so on. Also, thank already Ms. Kainz-Huber for her very interesting first briefing. So for Luxembourg, so what I can say is that among the entire list of about 20 ambitious and more binding common commitments undertaken by the member states in the PESCO context, we find two collective benchmarks. The first being the successive medium-term increase in defense investment expenditure to 20% of total defense spending in order to fill strategic capability gaps by participating in defense capability projects in accordance with CDP and the CAD, and the second one being to increase the share of expenditure allocated to collaborative defense research and technology with a view to nearing the 2% of total defense spending. So while on one hand, so the acquisition of a strategic tactical air transport plane, the A400M, delivered in October 2020, the accession in 2018 to the multi-role tanker transport fleet program, MRTT, that allowed us to access further strategic air transport capacities, or the upcoming Earth observation system, LUX-EOSys, where the satellite is planned to be launched in the first quarter of 2023. Luxembourg has in recent years always managed to perform very well in the 20% defense investment expenditure benchmark of PESCO by exceeding the benchmark by over the double at around 40%, totaling a yearly amount of around 150 to 160 million euros. So that was for Luxembourg always a challenge, but it was a challenge that we, without further help from other services and stakeholders, we could stand by ourselves, and we very often relied on partner nations, for example, Belgium and Netherlands, to fulfill these objectives. On the other hand, however, the PESCO benchmark that requires Luxembourg to spend at least 2% defense expenditure of collaborative defense R&T projects, that is for Luxembourg an amount of 7 million euros, is an objective that Luxembourg always struggled to reach so far. Indeed, the difficulty or specificity of this benchmark lies in the fact that the projects needed to be collaborative, meaning that at least one other member state needed to be part of the project. Unfortunately, until recently, Luxembourg, due to the complexity of building up a collaborative project, and due to the limited human resources we have within our Directorate of Defense, our vision was always a little bit limited by this, or not was a vision, but our objective or aim was always limited by the fact that we limited our portfolio at 100% more or less to national R&T projects, thus making it nearly impossible to reach the 2% goal. In order to work on this mishap and to open the approach to R&T, the Directorate of Defense adapted its posture and started a strong information campaign. And then, in close cooperation with Lux Innovation, which helped us a lot to promote the capability technology groups, CAPTEX, from EDA within national industry and RTOs, as they needed to be informed about the big opportunities that lie in collaborative defense, since these projects proposing the various CapTechs are direct responsive to identified capability gaps by the member states and are by definition collaborative projects. With a total of 14 CapTechs and one ad hoc working group, we are confident that there's interesting projects and opportunities for many national actors to join. For example, I can cite at the moment that the University of Luxembourg has joined 2 CapTechs in 2020 and is already member of 2 collaborative projects where the Directorate of Defense finances their contribution for an amount of more or less 650,000 euros in 2022, and they are planning to join 3 more projects this year. As we are still waiting for a political decision, I cannot give you at the moment more information of the projects they want to join. But to add to this, it's also with the help of Lux Innovation that in 2021, 17 companies or RTOs joined different CapTechs, mostly in space and light materials projects. So that's something we went from 1 to 17, and we are looking forward for the future to continue working together with Lux Innovations to find more opportunities for our companies and RTOs. Concerning the EDF, Luxembourg has now shown support for 4 proposals or 4 projects that were proposed in the first EDF call in 2021. The proposals that we supported are situated in an environment where we have already some expertise and we are looking forward to growing. 2 of those proposals were in the space domain, the European Protected Waveform and the space response to risk and integration with ground system. 1 more in cyber defense or cyber, the improved efficiency of cyber trainings and exercises, and the last one in military mobility, a development of a digital system for secure and quick exchange of information related to military mobility. For the first call, Luxembourg's approach was a very careful one. Indeed, as already mentioned before, in absence of human resources and in absence of expertise and knowledge on how these projects will impact dire human resources, we know here at the Directorate of Defense, we opted for a very prudent approach instead of going all in, and later that we would realize that we could not fulfill our aim and our ambitions. Right now we are waiting for the second we are waiting for the lessons learned of this first call to have a better understanding of the consequences of EDF projects on our staffing, but for taking a closer look at the second EDF call in 2022 and potentially support more project proposals. So as you have seen, Luxembourg is really, as Director of Defense, is really limited by the human resources factor. So we would like to do more, but we cannot do more. For the future, the Directorate of Defense will continue building on the work done these past 2 years, especially also with Lux Innovations, who gave us a really great outlook and great opportunities where we could go on. That will mean that we are increasing the visibility of CapTechs in Luxembourg and improve the participation of our industry and RTOs through information sessions organized by the Directorate of Defense and Lux Innovation. Also, as already mentioned, we are going to keep a close eye on the results from EDF and decide on the way ahead sometime in 2022. But I can assure you already right now that there's a high ambition within the Directorate of Defense to participate in more project proposals. We are also planning to launch a national defense call in the upcoming month, which is also something new for the Directorate of Defense and hopefully a further means to involve the industry in defense R&T. There are also talks on an international level for new financing solutions for innovation, as well as programs that would help with networking and cooperation for the industry. But those topics will be presented and explained in due time once everything has been clarified, authorized on a political level and signed. I think this concludes what I have to say from the Luxembourg Directorate of Defense. And if you have any questions, you can always come up with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guy, for these insights and very encouraging results that have been achieved in 2022. You have mentioned the collaboration with Lux Innovation, and this is a very interesting combination, taking into consideration that Luxembourg's industry is mostly active in the civil domain. And therefore, I would like to come to our next question for Lux Innovation. De Benjamin, as Director of the R&D and Innovation Support Department, you have the global view on all RDI initiatives that are launched, both at national and European level. So could you please recall rapidly Lux Innovation Commission's international and European innovation ecosystem, and then also explain more specifically how Lux Innovation supports the Luxembourg industry in the frame of DDF, but also in the frame of its collaboration with the Directorate of Defense. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Alexander. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, my dear panelist colleagues. Thank you very much, Sylvia, for your presentation. It was really interesting to have the highlights on the two programs, and thank you very much, Colonel Hoffman, for your trust and your explanations. And I will try to go a little bit deeper in how we, as National Innovation Agency, we intend to implement this together with the more larger mission that we have. So as an organization, we have on our board the Ministry of Higher Education and Research, but also the Ministry of Economy, together with FIDIL, the Voice of Industry, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber of Crafts. We have last year reframed our strategy for the next 4 years as well. And in that sense, I can say that our mission is twofold. The first one is really to empower companies to innovate, to be ready for tomorrow. And secondly, we identify innovation opportunities and foster collaborative innovation projects that stimulate the development of a sustainable, competitive, and digital economy. So, in summary, we intend to tackle innovation on an individual level, meaning on company level, but also through the ecosystem, through different means. Either working on transversal or transdisciplinary initiatives, but also by creating bridges between different initiatives and efforts. And I will come back to that a little later. But because before, I would also like to share with you our strategic goals. We have 4 strategic goals. The first one is to be a key enabler to help Luxembourg companies. The second one is be an efficient accelerator and facilitator of digital-enabled sustainable economic development. So here we are considering on this second strategic activity, we are considering a broader level of activity and impact. And we aim to support the government and the different organizations or the directorates reaching their objectives, but also the twin objectives of the economy. And here, of course, I would like to emphasize our roles, for example, that have our cluster managers who are managing the different sectors in Luxembourg, where the government has set some priorities, for example, in health, mobility, the manufacturing industry sector, the clean tech, among others. But there are also some other sectors and clusters which are also priorities and which are not directly managed by Lux Innovation, like space or logistics and cybersecurity. But these belong to different national and European strategies. And we intend to contribute there with innovation and with innovation programs. So we have 2 more strategic goals, but those are really oriented internally, so I won't go into detail. But in short, what do we do? So we offer a portfolio of products. So we are really oriented towards the companies. And we have services that meet their innovation needs. Of course, to tackle mainly digital technologies, to enhance sustainability, efficiency, competitiveness, and global resilience and growth. And at this stage, I would like to come back to my previous statement when I said that we are willing to create an impact in a larger framework throughout the ecosystem. And therefore, we create bridges between different initiatives and efforts. And as Colonel Hoffman stated it before, the defense directorate in Luxembourg reached out to us because they were aware about these European collaboration opportunities and R&D projects funding opportunities, whether they were through PESCO, DDF, or DDA, or others. And there was also a need on their side to reach out to the companies. And since our framework is innovation and company support, we joined forces. So I would here really like to publicly thank La Direction de la Défense for their trust and support. So easily said, we could put it like this, that we share the same objectives, but we have different impact requirements, but which complement each other perfectly. So for the next few minutes, I will just focus on purely innovation and company impact. So for a company specifically, or maybe also research organization, how does this play out? So what we would do with our experts, we would guide companies towards tangible solutions that meet their individual needs. So either we have time, the company has time and wants to invest time, and we can go through a fully fledged 360 analysis and see what are the challenges ahead, what are our priorities, how can we set up a roadmap over a period of 2 or 3 years with different programs, or we can respond directly with the service that you are asking for. And this, of course, includes also specific requirements and supporting services and timely advice on national and European funding opportunities, but also to connect technical, scientific expertise, structuring projects, making sure they're eligible, and having the greatest sense of success. So for us, it's relatively new to work on the defense programs. However, we have a huge experience in the European framework programs for research and development, FP6, FP7, Horizon 2020, and now for a few months, Horizon Europe. So we gained a nice expertise, and Luxembourg is among the best ranked member states when it comes to participation success rates. So even more, the participation and the funding amount for Luxembourg has tripled between FP7 and Horizon 2020, and the industrial participation is increasing as well. We have one of the highest percentages of industrial participation. So we want to benefit of that knowledge, and also as Sylvia has put it earlier, there are similarities between the two programs that we can manage and that we can support you as a company to access them. So why? Because at Lux Innovation, Alexander, who is also here with us, is a national focal point, and he has expertise in the programs together with some other colleagues, and so we can translate those program opportunities and find which calls or topics are best adequacy to your own company needs, and how can we align your intentions with the expectations of the different programs. And then we can support every company in the different steps that it need to go through to fulfill a proposal, to create a consortium, and to put forward your ideas in the most correct manner. One of the first essential steps, and that will be my last point, is, of course, Luxembourg has no prime contractor as compared to neighboring countries. So I'm thinking about like Airbus or Thales or huge German companies that we don't really have here in Luxembourg. But in order to get in contact with these actors is probably a first very important step and required to get in these consortia. So we have been talking about the capability technology working groups, or the CAPTECs, in different domains, in space, cyber, materials, environment. And these are one of the best platforms for you to be involved as a company, to learn more about the opportunities that will be upcoming, to contribute to the collaborative thinking and building of the next challenges. And also for you, of course, maybe first on professional level to enlarge your network, to get in touch maybe with future customers or suppliers, and in best cases, of course, to be part of a potential consortium that would apply to a call. So that's my main point for today, and I'm sure that Christine will have much more detail and experience on that she will be able to share. But one thing that I would like to just one sentence is that if you have an idea or if you are looking for an opportunity as a company, please reach out to Alex or to other members of our team or myself, and we can build something together to see how it will work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benjamin, for this explanation. I think it showcases quite importantly what Luxembourg's role is when it comes to supporting innovation endeavors of all kinds within Luxembourg's industry. Now, at the example of Luxembourg, which has no defense prime contractors as such, it becomes also very clear that the Luxembourg industry can and must use European programs such as the European Defence Fund, the European Defence Agency, and PESCO as a trampoline to get access to the European defense market and also integrate the defense value chain. And in that sense, the close collaboration between Luxembourg and the Directorate of Defense is certainly of great benefit. With this, I would like to get to the last question. So this will be for REA System Luxembourg. Christine, while national support from the public authorities is key for being recognized both at national level and European level, the Luxembourg industry still needs to get themselves in contact with the prime contractors and at the same time also adapt their processes to the requirements from the defense market. Therefore, I think for REA Luxembourg, which is developing end-to-end services in space and cybersecurity, you have already been able to establish strong ties with the national public authorities in space and defense, and you are also active within the European Defence Agency and the EDF. So could you please let us know what has been your defense-related experience so far, both at national and European level?
Yeah, thank you very much, Alexander, and good afternoon, all of my fellow panelists. So thank you very much for all the very insightful informations we just received already from Sylvia, from Benjamin, and Guy. I wanted to say that REA is, is a group headquartered in Belgium, in fact, but we are present in 11 countries, among which REA Luxembourg, which has been opened very, very recently, right? We only have almost a little bit more of a year of existence. So our experience with Luxembourg is also very young, very new. Although myself, I've been working a long time within Luxembourg. I think that REA Luxembourg, had a learning curve and had to go, to understanding also how to work, with the different governments. We are present in defense for a long time. We have 30 years of experience, and REA is a group which has been growing 20% every year, right? So this is absolutely important growth, and we are present in NATO, for example. We are delivering cybersecurity services for NATO. We're also delivering services to the Dutch MOD in their, naval sector. So just to let you know that this is not a new sector for the group. REA Luxembourg, we can say that we are growing our ambition in defense for Luxembourg. And as Colonel Hoffman just mentioned, around this Lux Geo6 project, which is a military Earth observation satellite, which will be launched in 2023, we are lucky, and honored and proud to have been, winning this project with local Luxembourg companies. So we are actually teamed up with a lot of very important Luxembourg company like Lux Space, Lux Trust High Tech, and other actors to actually come together and win this project. So I think that it shows that we are ambitious and then we want to actually grow in that sector. So I think that Luxembourg, if I answer to your question now, it is a wonderful country, right, to support enterprises and small and medium enterprises. And we see very well, in defense that, you are willing to help the companies such as us, such as the REA system Luxembourg, and to position companies as catalysts, for the national industrial interests. For example, you've been driving us through the technicalities of the process, right? EDF fund, as you explained to Sylvia, is not so easy to understand because it's a collaborative project. There are some rules to follow, and for SMEs, it's not quite easy or to understand. By the way, REA is more a mid-cap than an SME, but we do find the same problems, and I explain that later. You also, because you explained that very well, that you are present in EDA CapTech, you have been also helping us participating into those CapTech. And for example, we are a member of the ad hoc working group for space with the support of Luxembourg. And for cyber, right, we are already in this CapTech cyber, and we intend to make proposals to Luxembourg, right, on those particular topics. So our experience, I mean, did I answer your question? You want me to go forward, to the next question, Alexander? Do you want to react to what I said?
Well, I think it's actually, you're very much in line. Maybe if you could just elaborate a little bit also on the challenges that you can see maybe for SMEs, also to get into EU defense supply chain. I mean, getting in contact with the primes, this is not so easy. So how did you do it, and what would you recommend to SMEs?
Yeah, I mean, maybe one thing I wanted to add to what we are doing is that we have been present in EDIDP already, not as REA Luxembourg, but as REA Group. So we have some experience really with those projects where we have the Lotus and IMUX projects. We are working with big partners, so we do have that experience already. And for the EDF call, we have submitted 3 proposals. So just to let you know that we are actually trying to be active proposals, which are, delivering on what we can do, which is cyber range, model-based system engineering capabilities. And in some of them, like with the Bulgarian Defense Institute, we are the technical leader. We also will contribute. I mean, we'll see how we are going to be selected, of course, or not. But we are working with the Patrol Corvette, for example. So it's just to let you know that we have indeed some experience already into those projects. So how do we perceive the landscape and the challenges? Indeed, you mentioned that, right? The difficulty to work with the biggest, right? So this defense has been ruled or managed, if I can say, or the last decades by big groups which are there, which have been, which have their importance, of course, and it's not always easy as an SME or a mid-cap to work with them, right? They are happy to have you because remember, they are incentivized to take SMEs into the projects, right? I think they win 10%, so they like to have us, but in reality, once the project has started, you have to raise your hand by saying, "Hey, I'm here," right? Don't forget that I have a part to do. I have work packages to deliver. So please continue to discuss and have this integration into the projects of what we intend to do. So I think that's really a challenge. So it takes a lot of resources inside the SMEs to actually, raise that with the big players. The funding mechanism might be also a little bit rébarbatif, if I can say this in French, is that it's complex. It's not easy for small companies to look into the business plan that could go out of it, right? In fact, when REA invests in defense, it is also because we see a recurrent business, right? Otherwise, do it only for research might not be, a viable future for a small and medium enterprise. So I think that's really a very important thing to consider. and simplifying procedures to SMEs. Probably, Sylvia, you've heard about this already many times. I'm sorry to repeat it, but I think that would be really helping the SME. So the procedures, submitting the proposal, and so on is not easy, and so sometimes you feel a little bit lost when you have to submit that. Alexander, I can stop here. I mean, if you want, so and wait for the questions to go into more details. If for example, on recommendations, I can intervene later if you want.
Okay, great. So thank you very much, Christine. I think these are very valuable insights, and in fact, just we have a bit less than 10 minutes left, and we really have then we use then really the 60 minutes. So I would just like maybe take the occasion to address a last question, open question to each of you, just 2 minutes for each, starting with the European Commission. So Sylvia, I think taking into consideration all the defense-related developments in recent years, where do we stand, and what still needs to be done according to you, let's say in the next 5 years when it comes to defense?
Sorry, I should unmute myself first. Well, where do I see defense in 5 years from now? What do we want to, what do we have to do? If you look a little bit from my perspective now from the EDF, of course, for us it is, and I mentioned that already, we need to make sure that if the EDF is a longer lasting and a success for the future, this inclusiveness is something that needs to be taken very seriously. So this cannot be just a program for 4 or 5 member states. We need to make sure that it offers really opportunities for industries, companies across all member states and companies of all sizes. So we're aware of that, and apart from many of the measures that have already been mentioned by me or now also by Christine, who very rightly pointed out that there is this really bonus system also worked into the EDF to actually, if you so wish, give a carrot for SME participation and also mid-cap participation, to be very correct. So from that point of view, this is something what we will take very serious, and that boils down in practical terms, as I said, to SME participation, but also bringing in more innovation into the defense sector, which we believe will be a process that is already ongoing, and it will just continue and increase. Even for all the classical capability sectors, and there will be certain technology areas which will become increasingly relevant and important, and we need to be proactive here also and keep that in mind. Now, what I would like to see is that, of course, that the EDF has an impact, and maybe together with all the other instruments, it's not a standalone activity. There is PESCO was mentioned, CARD was mentioned, EDA activities were mentioned. So all this together, what I would like to see is that here now in 5 years from now, collaboration across borders and amongst industry, defense industry, civil industry across the EU, but also amongst member states behind them, will be something like the new normal in the future, and not an exemption, hard to fight for and hard to achieve as it is today. And a last point, yes, civil defense synergies, in my view, they will become also something like a new normal in the future, because I believe also at technological level, then reflected potentially in cooperation, this kind of extreme distinction between this is civil, this is defense, will probably become a lot more blurred, and there will be a lot more cooperation spillovers between the two sectors in the future. So that's my prognosis, if you so wish.
Thank you very much, and I think you mentioned it very well. So it's cooperation spillovers. So really looking forward for that. Guy, maybe also a last word from your side. I think according to the EU cyber and space defense are key domains where civil and military synergies need to be strengthened. These are also areas of interest for the Directorate of Defense. So, what can be expected on national side for the upcoming years?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the second question. So, yeah, for cyber and space are very high important domains that are aims for the Directorate of Defense. So what's now coming on for the space is that we intend to publish end of February 22 a space strategy where we define more clearly in what direction and in what space domains Luxembourg's defense is continuing to evolve. And once this is published, I think we will have further discussions again with Lux Innovations to help us find correct partners, as for example, RIA here for Lux, the Lux EOS system. So to find the correct partners where we can find where we can start a cooperation and to come up with collaborative ideas for further projects. So there we are still in the baby shoes on where we are going on. So while on the other side we have the cyber strategy that was already published in 2020, end of 2019. So there we have already clearer ideas in what direction we are going now, and we recognize that there are a lot of opportunities for cross fertilization between defense and other sectors. As it's not a surprise, cyber is a cross-cutting area, and it's highly likely that future cyber and EDTs will have a dual use civilian military application. So this applies also for the research and the technology domain. So where we can find a lot of crossovers in quantum communication, in the EU quantum communication infrastructure, in quantum-proofed encryption, managing risk in defense supply chains, and so on. So what is one of the big advantages of Luxembourg? It's even if it's a small country, the big advantage is that we have really short decision paths. So it doesn't take long to get a political approval. And as we are highly digitized and a leader in technologies, that goes even faster. It is our interest to increase our potential collaboration with other countries. There are numbers of fora in the EU where cross-national projects can be sponsored, and it is in our own interest to encourage industry, Luxembourg industry, to participate both in the projects themselves and the information sharing and networking opportunities that this fora provides. Now coming a little bit more specific to the European Defence Fund, as I already told before, we joined one cyber project and two space projects in 2021. Now we are looking what other projects we can join in 2022. And we are then working with Lux Innovation to find the correct companies who are interested in joining it. In the EDA, they have a number of cyber working groups already working, including one on capability development and research and technology. Luxembourg is active in the cyber tech and cyber project team. Both groups commission studies and projects, while future work plans are not yet 100% identified and confirmed. But there's also a lot of cross-cutting cyber in defense for land, maritime, air and space. So also there we are looking in subjects and potential interest where we can either introduce artificial intelligence for defense or the establishment of a Cat-A project on an EU military computer emergency response team operational network. A number of Luxembourg companies are already members of non-government experts in the CapTech cyber. Finally, in the PESCO environment, that's another example where member state-driven defense cooperation, whereby member states come together to agree on cooperation on areas of common interest. In this domain of cyber, Luxembourg has expressed an interest in joining an Estonian-led project in the Federation of Cyber Ranges. Concerning space, we are looking in a project, in PESCO projects, on image pooling and sharing, so Earth observation pooling and sharing, as well as satellite communications, acquisitions and sharing. As part of our cyber defense strategy, we regularly undertake horizon scanning to identify future challenges and opportunities. This is also an objective that will be included in our future space strategy to scan the horizon and to be always in the front of technological advancements. And in order to promote Luxembourg industry, we will still continue with Lux innovation, because as I already said, and I have to underline it, and that was also said by Mr. Questier's cooperation with Lux Innovation helps us forward, and it's going really smoothly. So I'm looking forward to our next discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you very much for these discussions. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of the session, so I would like to thank all of you very much for your contribution, for very, very inspirative discussion. And then just point out that the sessions are going on in the Horizon Europe Day. So starting right away, you can go into the sessions for health, circular economy, space, and synergies in the innovation ecosystem. And in that sense, enjoy the next sessions and see you soon.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Alexander. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.